Hello everyone, how are you doing? I hope you are having fun learning at home and you are keeping safe. Today, we want to continue our discussion on price determination. But the focus for today's class is supply. Before we go into the details of the study, let us look at our objectives. Number one, we want to discuss the supply schedule and the supply curve. Number two, we want to evaluate the factors that affect quantity supplied. And number three, we want to look at the difference between change in quantity supplied and change in supply. What is supply then? Supply is the quantity of a commodity that the producer is willing and able to supply at the prevailing market price over a period of time. I'd like you to pay attention to the words or phrases that are underlined on the board. Quantity of commodity or service, prevailing market price, and the period of time. What does that tell you? It's telling you that the quantity of the commodity that the producer is willing to sell is dependent on the price, and the price is dependent on the time. Now let us look at the laws of supply. Ceteris paribus, that means all things being equal, the law of supply says the higher the price, the higher the quantity supplied. And the lower the price, the lower the quantity supplied. Now, what is this telling you? It's showing us that for the supply curve, there is a positive relationship between price and quantity. And that also applies to the demand schedule. What is a demand schedule? What is a supply schedule? A supply schedule is a table that shows the relationship between the price of a commodity and the quantity supplied, while the supply curve shows the relationship between the quantity supplied and the price of the commodity and the quantity of the commodity supplied. Let's quickly move on to a pictorial representation of the supply schedule and the supply curve. If you look at this side, you will see this table representing the supply schedule. You will see that at 100 naira, the producer is willing to supply 4 units, and at 350 naira is willing to supply 25 units, which means the producer will supply the least at the cheapest price and supply the most at the highest price. And the curve here is trying to demonstrate what we have on the graph, on the table. So that shows a positive relationship between price and quantity. Hence, the supply curve sloping up to the right side. Let's move on to talk about the factors that affect quantity supply. What are the factors that determine the quantity of a commodity that the producer is willing to supply? Number one, price. And that has become obvious in the course of the definition, the laws, and the analysis of the table and the graph. We see that price is very key to the supply of commodity. Number two, level of technology. With high technology, producer is willing to supply more. With low technology, the producer will be able to supply less. For example, producers using labor-intensive technologies will not be able to meet up with market demand, while producers that are using capital-intensive will be able to supply more of their product. Then the cost of production. The higher the cost, the lower the quantity supplied, and the lower the cost, the higher the quantity supplied. Taxation. Tax is a compulsory payment that the government imposed on the goods that are produced within the country. Higher taxes will mean that the cost of production will be high, and the high cost of production will lead to reduced quantity supply. While lower taxes means cheaper cost of production, and cheaper cost of production implies higher quantity supply. And lastly, on this note, government policies. Government policies can affect the quantity of a commodity that is supplied. For example, if government regulate or ban the consumption of a commodity, such commodity cannot be supplied. And if the policy of the government favors the supply of a commodity, the producer will supply more of the commodity. And lastly, for today's class, we'll talk about the difference between change in quantity supplied and change in supply. What is change in quantity supplied? Is the movement along the same supply curve as a result of a change in price of the commodity. Please pay attention to that, price of the commodity. If you look at the board, you will discover that when the price was P1, the producer is supplying Q1. And when the price increases to P2, the producer is willing to supply Q2. That change in price means that we have moved from point A to point B. This is an example of change in quantity supply. Then let's talk about change in supply. Change in supply implies that the demand curve or the supply curve, moves from its original position to a new position as a result of a change in all the factors that affect supply except price of the commodity. For example, if taste and fashion changes, that means the supply curve will move from S1 to S2, and this will require an entirely new supply schedule. We have covered most of these discussions in the class note that have been attached to the Google Classroom. Please, you can do well to check on them and you get more information. Thank you for participating in today's class. I'll see you soon.